the objective is the body, but what comes in the process is all of the mental faculties that are immersed in that process as well. So again, keeping the disciplines, setting yourself as a priority, following through with what you said you were going to do.
Right.
That in and of itself, that lends its hand to a massive mental component that people aren't really aware of before they start their journey in fitness.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where we're dedicated to help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled to have you here, and I want to thank each and every one of our listeners for taking the time out of their day to join us on our journey. You know, when you think about journey, you know, when you're prepping for a journey, it's like embarking on a path of our audacious life. It requires courage and resilience. It's like setting sail towards uncharted waters, not knowing what challenges may come your way, but being determined to face them head on. And speaking of audacity, our guest today, Justin Groth, embodies the spirit of audacious living in every aspect of his life. Justin is a personal trainer and bodybuilder with a passion of helping individuals achieve their fitness goals and strengthen both their bodies and minds. With years of experience in the health and wellness industry, Justin is a leading voice in the field of fitness, inspiring others to push past their limits and reach their full potential. In today's episode, Justin shares valuable insights on the interconnectedness of the mind and body, highlighting the importance of prioritizing self-care and well-being. His journey from overcoming identity issues to becoming a successful personal trainer exemplifies the transformative power of taking charge of one's health and fitness. So now that we've got the table set, without any further ado, here's Justin. Enjoy. Hey, Justin, thank you for taking the time and joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. Thanks for doing this, my friend.
Hey, thanks, brother, for having me. I appreciate being here.
Well, no, cool. Like I said, we spent a lot of time on this podcast, just exploring ways that we can, you know, and encouraging people to be more audacious in their action in their lives, and, you know, all taking risks and being bold in their actions and all these great things that I believe help us get to a better place. And so it's great to have you here to contribute to the conversation as we, you know, continue along that vein, that pathway. We all have a perspective, and yours as a bodybuilder and helping people get in fitness and health and better shape is sort of the perspective that you take. But I do, there's a part of the work that you do that I appreciate with respect to helping strengthen people's minds as well as their bodies. So I wonder perhaps if you could sort of elaborate on you and the work that you do.
Yeah, man. So I'm a personal trainer by trade, master trainer, meaning I can train any and all peoples with any kind of movement discrepancies, any age, etc. And really the strengthening the mind part comes from strengthening the body. I mean, you really can't go through any type of resistance training for a prolonged period of time without having something in your mind tell you, hey, stop, this sucks. You need to, or don't push that much weight, or don't push the threshold that far. And so in doing so, you understand the limits of your mind. And if you want to break through those limits, just in the confines of the workout space, then you have to force yourself to do more than you would have otherwise. And that by itself, when you do that so many times repetitively, day in and day out, through these different exercises, through these different, you know, disciplines that you're setting for yourself, whether it be through your fitness, whether it be through your food, you know, these things help to strengthen your mind, because you're not feeding into the feelings any longer. You're feeding into the things that need to be done, because you know these things are going to give you the outcome that you want.
Yeah. No, and I think that's why it's so clear to have a picture of what those outcomes are. Like, I mean, if you're not sure where you're working towards, you know, how are you sure you'll get there?
Right. So everybody, when they come into me, like, so for example, if someone comes into me for personal training and they want to get fit and they want to lose 15 pounds by, 2 months because they want to look better for the beach or something like that, a very normal goal. that is the objective is for them to get 15 pounds off. And that's what they think their objective is only. My objective is to get 15 pounds off, to gain muscle in the process, to recontour their bodies in the ways that they didn't think were possible in 2 months. Now, let me be honest with you. In 2 months, we can't do much of anything. Like, I can't really do much of, and nobody can. I mean, only 8 weeks, it's not a lot of time to do anything. Even if you're taking performance enhancing drugs, it's not a lot of time to do anything.
Right.
But we can do our best within that time constraint that she's given me or he's giving me. Now, the objective is the body, but what comes in the process is all of the mental faculties that are immersed in that process as well. So again, keeping the disciplines, setting yourself as a priority, following through with what you said you were going to do.
Right.
That in and of itself, that lends its hand to a massive mental component that people aren't really aware of before they start their journey in fitness. And that's, I think, the more profitable component in the equation, not just the body.
Right. And it's so funny because, everything does start with the mind. Especially when you talk about, pushing yourself past those limits. Because the reality is those limits were probably something that you established in your mind to begin with. So why can't you push past them too? Right.
Right. Well, you gotta set things as priorities, or anything that we do in life, we rank it in terms of its level of priority in our life. So if, for example, if we have a son or daughter and all of a sudden they get scalding hot water blasted all over their body, our number one priority is to get our child to the hospital to rectify this situation. Nothing else matters. That's our number one priority. And if more people thought of their health and their, not just their bodies, but their health and their mental health the same way. When I say mental health, I don't mean taking rest days because you're feeling emotional when you wake up. I'm talking about the mental faculties that consume you, your perspectives, the way that you see things, if you're grateful or not. All those things on top of the fact, on top of your body, your physical representation, if you put more of a priority on those things as if it were a life or death situation, and quite frankly, oftentimes it is for some people, you would reach your goals without fail. It's just a matter of precedence. It's a matter of placing and ranking which priority. What am I prioritizing in my life? Everybody prioritizes anything. They put it in a rank.
Right.
So how does your health rank?
Got you. That's a fair question. That's a fair question. And maybe one that people don't ask themselves often enough. Maybe.
Yeah, because people don't care about themselves enough. They try to care about others, thinking that that's the altruistic way of life, and that's what's going to get them all of the things that they need in life. Or if they give, then I'm going to get in return. And yes, there is a law of compensation. Obviously, there is a law of reciprocity.
Sure.
But within balance, within reason, you can't just scrape yourself thin every single day for every single person, because at the end of the day, you're going to become deficient. And that deficiency is going to compound over time. And before you know it, you're in a state of lack, in a state of need. And because everybody else around you is selfish, they're not going to really help you, at least the same way that you help them. And I'm saying that I'm not saying to not help people. I'm saying to keep yourself a priority. What does that look like in your life? Only you can answer that question.
Got you. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. So, Justin, what started you on this path? How did you get here in this path of wellness and health and mental toughness, if you will?
Well, I just really started with identity issues. When I was in high school, I kind of had an identity issue with how I wanted to, everybody, I think at that stage in life, they're trying to find themselves. We're very impressionable at that age, man. And we don't we want to have our own unique style, but we're scared to have it because we're scared of what other people are going to think about us. And so I was no different. And to make matters worse, I don't know if you would consider this worse, but in my high school, everybody always called me this NSYNC or Backstreet Boy. They always referred me back to these NSYNC or Backstreet Boys because I had this look about me. I had curly hair, I guess just the way that I looked, right? And so, although it's
could you sing? Could you sing?
No, that's one thing I couldn't do, and or dance. Couldn't dance, man. So, so I'm one of those people that I'm at a club. I'm too cool to dance. So I don't dance.
You gotta hold the wall up. I do that too. Hold the wall up.
Exactly. So I was kind of coined that in high school, and I slowly started to follow that path, man. And I started to find myself dressing like them and wearing my hair in sorts of ways that were like them. And like, that's not me, that's them. And I think because I took it as such a grave compliment, because they are talented and some of them are pretty good looking.
Sure.
Like, I was like, oh, this is a good thing. And I got more girls because of it, and more guys wanted to hang out with me. And it was just there was a sort of a clout, kind of a clout attached to it.
Sure.
And, I mean, as cloudy can get in high school, but that was something that I followed, and I realized shortly after that. When I say shortly, I mean like maybe a year or so into it, that like, this is not me. Like, I'm being inauthentic. And well, in the process, I started to, I started to want to embody the body of these people. And I joke about this a lot on other podcasts. So if your audience has heard me on other podcasts, I apologize for this review. But I always liked, I didn't have the cheeks that I wanted. I had really, really chubby cheeks. And so I was like, I got to lose weight in my face, because all these other guys that are on these, NSYNC, Backstreet, they don't have chubby cheeks, man. I want to, and I didn't like that. So I was like, well, I gotta lose weight. So how do I lose weight? I'm just going to run a lot and not eat.
Right.
And so I did just that. I did lots of cardio, and I ate like one meal a day, and I stayed off my hunger with Diet Coke and vegetables throughout the day.
Okay.
And I lost weight, man, but it was at the point where it got unhealthy looking. And I was at a point where I was at a really low weight. I was 136. And for my body weight, just for your audience to give them context, I'm 5'11", and my normal weight would be 170, roughly 170. So I was effectively 35 pounds below my normal weight mark, which on me, because I'm a little taller individual, it looked really sickly. And so at the time, I told my family, I said, look, I am not going to rectify this on my own. I need you to step in. I'm not going to tell myself to eat more, because I just can't do that. So I need somebody with credentials to tell me if I can, to eat more. So I went to an AI. There was something on my screen that said AI.
Oh gosh.
I went to a dietitian, and the dietitian got me on a diet program. I saw my mother's personal trainer, and it just catapulted in the opposite direction, man. I started gaining muscle. Wow. My body started changing. I was gaining some body fat, but it was more so muscle, because I did it in a pretty gradual, pretty gradually. And I fell in love with that process, man. And then, a few years later, I ended up competing in my first bodybuilding show. And all the while I've been natural, which means, for your audience, so they understand, drug-free. So no steroids, no performance enhancing drugs, no pharmacological substances of any sort, except for, obviously I take creatine monohydrate or protein or pre-workout at the store. And, but that was it, man. It's led me in this direction. And then that led to personal training, because people started coming up to me in the gym and asking me, hey man, well, how do you do that exercise? Or what is that exercise you're doing for? And I started to realize that as I was pouring into these individuals, just the tutelage of training, like that made me feel fulfilled. So I thought, I have to chase this feeling. It only feels right to chase this feeling.
Sure.
And so that was passion, and that fulfillment gave me purpose. So then I followed that direction. And it was no other reason why I followed that, but other than those two reasons. I felt fulfilled getting it, or I'm sorry, giving it, pouring in these people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was passionate talking about it. And that gave me purpose. So I followed it, and then it turned out to what it is today. I own a business. I have trainers inside the practice, and we train people, make them better.
It's a great story, and I'm curious. What was the original plan? Like, where were you supposed to end up?
Didn't have one, so that's it's a good thing that this came along, right? But this, let me tell you, Audley, this thing was germinating from the age of 19. Because when I had my identity crisis, I don't call it a crisis, I had my identity issues between around 17, 18 in high school. And then out of high school, it got real bad in college, or for the little college that I did go to. And that's when I started to, I started to think about, I wasn't thinking about my job. I wasn't thinking about anything like that. I wasn't thinking about my purpose in life. It fell in my lap because of what was seemingly negative in the first place, this identity issue. And it kind of blended into lifting weights. And then that led to me helping people. So it kind of just organically occurred on its own. And but this germination process started out first with the identity issue. And that's been 20 years in the future. That was in around 17, 18, 19. I'm 39 now. So this is a long, steady process of continuous growth. And it only revealed itself to me when I was doing something that I love to do, which was bodybuilding. Yeah. And I didn't have an agenda. There was no agenda. And organically came to me, man. And I just realized I have to chase this feeling. I love pouring into people like this. This is what makes me better. There's a reciprocity nature attached to it. I need to do more of this. Money was never in the forefront. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful for that, because if I let money guide me, I could have easily been one of those individuals that would have been and done anything by any means necessary. And that's just not an integral person. And that's not, you should not, if you're that kind of person, it's hard to hang your hat at the end of the night and be at one with yourself. So yeah, I'm just thankful for this process, man. I'm thankful for bodybuilding.
Well, I certainly do love the organic aspect of your personal journey and your story, because ultimately, Justin, we are all on our own individual paths, and where we end up is where we end up. But oftentimes where we end up is where we're supposed to be. It's just we get there at different stages, at different paces. We're not all the same. And I think where we oftentimes get ourselves in trouble is we'll look at someone else, we'll compare, and then it's a downhill spiral from that point on. But when you're staying on your path, and you used a word that I'm going to take, and you said a couple times, when you stay on your path, you're truly being authentic to yourself. And so the identity issues that you experienced at a young age was that lacking the authenticity, right? You were trying to be one of the pop stars, and I get it. Like it's out there, and it's shiny and it's nice, and people want to be gravitated to that and that kind of stuff. But those things can't sustain themselves, and they never do, because it's just not truly too real to who you are or who you're supposed to be. So I'm really glad that you share that aspect of your story, because it's an important one for people to resonate with individuals. I do also appreciate the fact that there's also a transition into wanting to help others. Man, like there's no better, and maybe I can get you to describe that, but I'd say there's no better feeling in the world than helping someone get to the place where they want to be, and helping people meet their goals, and they've got their dreams and things that they want for themselves, and you're part of that journey, part of that process. What's that feel like for you?
Yeah, there's really not, man. And there's something that is interwoven in us that I can't explain or I can't define, but there's something inside of us chemically that responds very favorably to when you impart your gifts onto others, and it makes them better. I don't know if that's obviously God-given, and I can't explain it. I don't know, maybe someone else can, but that's beyond me or beyond my scope of understanding. But there's something that inside of you alerts you and goes off to tell you, keep following that journey, keep following that desire, that vision, keep following that feeling. Because if it weren't for that, I would be lost like anybody else. And, you know, I spoke of in the very beginning about you shouldn't just keep helping people at the wayside of you. You obviously, this goes and kind of runs in concert with what we're talking about right now.
Yep.
If I wasn't my best, if I wasn't working on myself in tandem with helping other people and becoming better in my own right, I would never be able to pour into these people. All these people would get from me would be like it would be disarray. It would be negative. It would be disdain at best. It wouldn't be, because I feel mad at myself because I'm not in my best position. So how can I give my best self to them if I'm not in a good position? I just can't, man. And nobody can. And everybody that thinks they can, they're leaving so much untapped potential on the table for what they could be if they were better themselves, and not doing that for others. If they were better themselves, they could give so much to other people, is what I'm trying to say. And so in that, if I didn't set myself as a priority because I didn't realize the value in placing myself as a priority, I never would have felt that feeling of helping people. I never would have, I would have, if somebody came up to me, I would have been irritated or bugged or whatever. But because I was right with myself, because I was building onto the man that I know was admirable and respectful, and I could actually respect that man, and I could actually admire that man that I was creating. I wanted to give that man to everybody or anybody who would approach me. And that's the reason why I could pour into those people. So if I wasn't working on it myself, I'd have never been in the position to want to even pour into people.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by, you can help people, and you should. You have an obligation to help other people, in fact, with your gifts and your talents that God gave you. But you cannot forego what God made you to be.
Yes, that's right. And then there, you know, there's an aspect where of sort of taking care of yourselves. I mean, that I use that analogy where, you know, you're on the plane, right? When they'll say, hey, if there's an emergency mask comes down, you know, put it on yourself first before you tend to young children. And for a mother, that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. Like, you're not doing anyone any justice at all if you're not right where you're supposed to be. And you can't help them as much as you think you can. It's just not possible. So there is some, I'll call it selfishness, some necessary selfishness that has to be in play before you can go out and impact the world the way you might want to.
Yeah, man. Exactly.
You expressed with respects to helping people become bulletproof, which I think is a fabulous, certainly imagery. I wonder if you could explain that as to sort of what and how that fits into your overall goals of helping others.
Well, it comes by extension if you do the work. So if you do the work in terms of, let's say, trying to get a better body or trying to lose weight, obviously those things are tough for most people. And you're not just doing the process physically, you're doing the process mentally. Mentally is what gets you to show up physically. So in that process, there are going to be days where you don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to do that extra piece of cardio. You don't want to eat that kind of meal. You want to take a break. Well, by extension, or what happens, I should say by default, what happens is you get more hardened to your feelings. And that's why I say the word bulletproof, because it's a very made up nebulous term, but it means everything to me when it comes down to delving into disciplines instead of feelings. You have this hardened stoic state about you that cannot be maneuvered, that cannot be altered and cannot be negotiated with. So by extension, you're bulletproof, and nothing can come and permeate that wall that you've put up. And I'm not saying wall of the people, I'm saying wall with your feelings, wall with the shit that you know you need to get done.
Yes.
Nothing can penetrate it. And that's what happens when you adopt something of a physical fitness routine, when you adopt some type of a eating structure that is going to lend itself to a really favorable outcome to you physically and physiologically. You become you become resilient to the bullshit on the external side. You don't even contend with it, and you don't negotiate with it. You are who you are. You're keeping true to your disciplines. You're keeping true to your structure, and you're focused on the prize, which is you being better. And in the process of that, in order for you to I guess deflect and block these external side pieces that are coming and trying to derail you, you must be hardened. You must be callous to the bullshit, and you must understand that your focus is your focus is your disciplines, and you must be unwavering with that.
Unwavering is a fabulous word, because I think it really it speaks to the importance of being steadfast. And an underlying piece to what you're saying, I think is important for people to key in on, is that you're building yourself up and you're strengthening yourself, because we know that there are going to be challenges in life, right? No one goes through life scot-free and everything's a skip in the park. Everyone experiences something. So as a way of preparing ourselves for what's to come, is we train our minds, we train our bodies, we get ourselves ready. We don't know what's coming. We don't get a 10-minute advance notice bell that says, hey, trouble's on the way. It hits us, we have to respond and move forward. And so a lot of what you're talking about does exactly that, which I think is fabulous.
I agree, man. And it's just a part of being human. It's just part of going through life,
Right.
and you can either fold or you can keep going. It's just up to you, man. And I mean, everybody has different challenges in life. Everybody faces obstacles. The hand of cards were dealt to me were not dealt to you or somebody else. We all have different hands we have to deal with, or work with, rather, I should say. And making the best out of your hand is what it's all about. Right. And then you'll help people in the process as well if you are making your hand the best. But if you fold, man, I mean, it's lights out for you. It's curtains for everybody around you that could otherwise been in help by you if you had actually answered the calling to what you were supposed to be in life.
Well, there's a part about this for me that I always get excited about, the ability to build our own resiliency, right? That level of resiliency. So you're running something. It was hard. It was difficult. We didn't like it. Maybe it was painful, but we endured that. And once you've endured it and moved past that, we've now strengthened ourselves, as opposed to, seeing trouble and running the other way. Running the other way, we never test our limits. We never know how far we can go. We never know if it was really a problem to begin with, because maybe it was something in our minds that we just developed and said, I can't do this, I don't want to bother. But if we don't test it, we don't go head on, then we never really know, right?
Right. And that's the part where people have to be more risky and they have to be more courageous, because you never really know.
Can we throw the word audacious there just for kicks? Throw the word audacious too.
There it is. But you really have to test the boundaries of what you think you can do.
Yeah.
And you never really do that unless you're not on some level risky or courageous.
Yeah.
And being courageous, you have to understand that it might not be a success. It might be a failure at the other side.
Yep.
You have to roll the dice. You have to be willing to.
And I think, and even within the conversation of failure, I do believe that provides still an opportunity to figure out, to learn, to grow, develop. So in the event that you see this again, or if someone that goes through this, you're equipped to be able to help them. So I think really comes down to how you choose to embrace this thing called failure, or if you choose to embrace it at all. Again, others run away because they think it's better in the moment, but in the long run, it's not really helping them.
No, you're right, man. I think that if more people overcame even like 2 failures in their life, they would the fear of fear would kind of dissipate to some degree. It would lose its zeal, and then also they would become more competent in knowing that they can overcome and bounce back. Like I shouldn't say competent. They would be confident in knowing that they can bounce back after dealing with that fear or that failure. So there's the fear of the failure, or the fear of the fear of the failure. And then there's that confidence in knowing that they can overcome even if they do, end up encountering failure. And so, but you never even get to that point if you don't even cross the threshold of or to that other side of failure or the potential of failure.
Tell me, Justin, how quickly or how long did it take for you to make the connection to the mind and body as you're going through your journey? Because there definitely is a connection. Our minds give us all the insight in terms of what we can and can't do, and what our bodies can and can't do. Is that something that you identified relatively quickly, or did it take a process for you to get there?
Yeah, so probably a couple years into my lifting journey, I don't want to call it journey as much as it's just a part of my life, is my lifting experience.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody knows, if anybody's lifted weights or worked out for any extended period of time, you know that 2 years when you're just starting is a fair amount of time. And 2 years without fail, always training, never missing a meal, etc. I remember looking in the mirror with my shirt off one day, and I remember looking at myself thinking, I don't even look like I lift. Like this is depressing to look at. Like I don't even look like I lift here. And I remember looking in the mirror like really hard at myself and thinking, and not like that, not dissecting myself, just realizing that I didn't have the shape that I thought I would have after 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, this is a crossroads. I either stop or I just say F it and I keep going. And that's just what I did, but something inside of me really could not separate from that person that wanted to keep going. I couldn't just forget everything and then go back to doing nothing. Like at that point, fitness was a part of my life, whether I liked it or not.
Yeah.
It was just a part of my life. It was a part of my behaviors. It was part of my daily habits. Everything that involved being better physically was now a part of my life. So the way I trained, the foods that I ate, the way that I sectioned out my sleep, even down to how much water I drank, it was all now a part of my life. It's because I had done this repetitively for 2 years, over 700 days, where I wasn't skipping a beat. It's now wired in me. It's ingrained in me that this is the way that I lead my life. And so it wasn't even an option at all, I would say, to give up and go the opposite direction. And so I just had to take the punch on the chin, and I just kept going. And then it was just from there on out, it was weird how years down the road where it just, my body sort of slowly started to change more and more. Mm-hmm. And I started getting better and more comfortable in my skin. And, things just refined themselves and things got better. And this whole thing, like this whole process of transforming your body, I mean, some people do it faster than others.
Sure.
Some people have longer to go than others, but it's doable. And it's doable if you set yourself as the priority. And if you do that, you can do a lot of things. People don't understand their potential. Yeah. And it's probably because they're associating with people that have a low level potential or don't really push themselves far in life or have mediocre visions or mediocre dreams at best. And they don't really tap into that. They don't tap into that talented side of them. Like everybody has a talent to them that exuding out of them, but they're choosing not to do anything with it because of who they're around or what their environment is. And it's sad, man. And it's really up to the individual though, for them to realize that they have more, they could be more. As cliche as that sounds, it's true. There's a reason why it's a cliche. It's because this shit is true.
Right. So what is then the starting point then, Justin? Someone is at this precipice and they're looking at going, I got to do this. I'm not sure. How do they make that first step forward?
Well, first of all, if this is even an idea in their head, it's probably their conscience telling them to get right. So I would say stop questioning it so much, stop analyzing it, and take the first step forward. That first step forward, it might look like something like a 20-minute walk 3 times a week. But at least you're engaging in something that's outside of your comfort zone, outside of the norm for you right now. And then that turns into 4 times a week. Then that walk turns into 5 30-minute walks a week. And then maybe you start getting in the gym, and maybe you start working out on the machines at the gym maybe 3 days a week for 30 minutes. And then that turns into you maybe doing 4 days a week for 30 minutes. And then that turns into you doing 4 days a week with free weights for 35 minutes or 40 minutes. The point is, you start where you're at. You start where you're at and what you can do. And then from there, the incentive builds to do more. It will build to do more. As long as the main trope over you is, I am a priority. Because for me to put other people in the position that is they're going to be better from me, I need to be a priority to myself.
Gotcha. I love it. I love it. The idea of just putting yourself first. I know we talked earlier about the whole selfishness thing, but there's a lot of truth to that. And it's very relevant to what we're talking about. And quite frankly, if you're not thinking of yourself first, it's that much harder to get yourself to where you want to be, because it's easy to get distracted, sidetracked. You can't sustain it. And so I think that's a fabulous point. Justin, this has been a really awesome chat, man. I really appreciate the manner in which you've sort of simplified the process and not complicated. Like, you take a really straightforward approach, I think is what people need to hear, particularly around the conversation of health and fitness and getting better, as opposed to sugarcoating it and fluffing it up. You really need to be straightforward and direct, and you've done that. For individuals that want to connect with you or learn more about your work or work with you, where can we send them?
So right now, the best way to get a hold of me is through my Instagram, and that's Justin Craig Groth. There's no underscores or spaces. It's just a straight Justin Craig Groth. And the last name is spelled Groth. And then if you want to get on the website, you can go at the website. That's where a lot of the podcast links are, etc., for the podcast called Straight from the Chest, and that's on Apple and Spotify. But the website's going to be the official justingroth.com. But really, the best way is to get a hold of me through my Instagram handle.
Cool. I was gonna say, I was gonna take a moment and give a shout out and love to fellow podcasters. So I'm glad you put that out there. I understand the work involved with that. It's the life I live, and so I get it. Yeah, man. So look, this has been awesome. I appreciate you being here, the insights and the sharing, and keep up the great work, Justin, man. It's fabulous.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, bud.
Be well. Back we are here on the podcast, and thanks to Justin for being here. You know, when I think about the conversation, one of the key takeaways that I had with Justin is by making ourselves a priority. He talked a lot about that and committing to a disciplined fitness routine. You know, we can build resilience and confidence to face life's challenges head on, and that's what Justin talked about. His story reminds us of that true strength comes from within, and that by embracing a mindset of audacity, we can achieve remarkable growth and transformation in our lives. For more inspiration on fitness tips with Justin, be sure to connect with him directly through his Instagram handle or visit his website for more resources, and of course the podcast that he often contributes to as well. Listen, this has been a great episode, and thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really good to share and connect with all of you. Be sure to follow us on social media. It really is about inspiring others. Remember, the audacious life you desire is absolutely in reach. You just have to have the courage to go out and chase it. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by